I have never shared this story before. This happened when I was 10 or 11. I was living with my mum and sister in a super old rural farmhouse, probably from the early 1900s in Northern California, the town of Loomis. It was a basic 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house with a cellar and attic, and lots of land for horses and fruit trees. So one hot summer day, when my sister, mother and I were all home, I was playing Warcraft 2 or something on my computer and started to hear extremely loud and violent banging on the wall. It was literally rattling on the windows. Being rather absorbed in my gameplay, I let it go until a few minutes had passed, at which point my confusion meter had reached its limits and I had to figure out what was causing it. Naturally, I assumed it was my sister, who was 16 at the time and was being stupid, kicking the walls with both legs. That's how loud it sounded. But she wasn't. In fact, she assumed I was doing the same. It confused both of us, because it was even louder than we thought a person could kick the wall. It sounded like a freaking car ran into the house over and over for several hours. We grabbed our mum, who indicated she heard the same thing. None of us were doing it. We looked on the roof and in the attic, both of which were totally clear. The pipes, the plumbing, and the electrical had never made such violent noises before and were not causing them now. So we were totally at a loss as to what was making these horrible violent bangs. It shook the window panes and could be heard through the entire house. No way could have been an earthquake because the floor wasn't shaking. We just heard such loud banging. Coincidentally, this was the same day a family friend's son had died, although I don't know why that would have anything to do with it. Some other creepy stuff happened in the house, not on the same day, but throughout the 3 years that we lived there. I would feel a presence walk out of my mum's bedroom and through the living room behind me when I was there playing video games. My mum also dreamt that a brown smoke was trying to enter her abdomen. She was paralyzed and couldn't scream, but I heard her struggling through the wall. We had a weird shared closet with a door in between our rooms and woke her up. Another time I went down to the basement to look for something. I seem to remember I was checking on the kittens, to which our cat had given birth to down there. And a strange black mist slowly covered my foot, promptly making me get the hell out of there, and I never returned. I'm guessing that this all had to do with the fact that my mum practiced witchcraft and was actually in a coven for years. But I'm not sure. We never determined the source. My dad also went on to die probably less than a year after this, and we were still living there. Perhaps it was a strange premonition. I would love to hear your thoughts. Many years ago, when I was a little one, my mum was on the computer doing whatever adults do on those magic boxes that house 3D pinball and FreeCell. I, being the greedy little gorb I was, decided I wanted a crunchy from the kitchen. And so I walked downstairs, and as I walked into the dining room, I heard a man's voice say, "Hey, Jay, it's okay." I thought maybe it was just my mum calling me from upstairs, and so I got my crunchy, ran upstairs and asked, "What is it, mummy?" To which she said, "I didn't call you." For a while after, I used to swear I could see the figure of a man standing in my bedroom at night, and would tell my mum about the man in my room who came out of the wardrobe. She always just brushed it off, and went with saying, "Night night," to the man in the wardrobe before I slept. Well, for years there was nothing, and as I grew older it just developed into me realizing how much of a silly kid I was, making this nonsense up. until about 2 years ago. I woke up earlier than normal. I was daydreaming someone had been calling my name. After waking up and realizing no one was in my room or even calling my name, I was ready to brush it off and go back to sleep until a man's voice said, "Jay, I miss you." Now call me insane, but this freaked me out, and I felt like telling people would just make me look like a waste of oxygen. But about a year ago, I stumbled upon a bunch of old cassettes, which she had recorded over the years, and played one in the radio to see what it was. Eventually a tape came up, and there was the voice. It was engraved in my brain. I couldn't forget it. My granny told me that was my dad talking. My dad died nearly 20 years ago, and I never got to know him and have no memories of him as I was far too young. He loved me and never had me out of his arms. With myself being quite a skeptical person, it was hard to grasp this, as it is against a lot of things I believe to be the case. However, from what it seems, my dad has always been there. Never seen, but definitely heard. I met this friend online the summer before my junior year of high school. I was 16. His name was Flip. We clicked pretty instantly. Our senses of humor matched up, and I felt like we were really good friends. He was a guy, I a girl, but I never held any romantic feelings. Also, I was in a relationship. When I was 16, he was 19. I could tell he had romantic feelings, and let me know 6 months into our friendship that he loved me. We didn't really have a stable friendship, as he flipped out a lot and would go on extended amounts of time without talking to me. He told me it was because he couldn't bear to talk to me knowing we can't be together, because I was dating someone else. But I knew that it was more of a control thing, and he wanted to stop talking to me to make me feel like I'm missing something. He really hated women, really disliked women, and felt like most were just users. He told me he felt like I was different, that I was the only true woman he's ever met. Real red flag right there. I was young and didn't really think much of it. Our friendship was only online, instant messaging and FaceTiming. Now when we went on these tangents where he would abruptly stop talking to me, he would go on Twitter and make offensive, demonizing tweets about me to people, like awful stuff. When he came back, I just ignored that stuff, because he would return being funny and nice. So, he also had a habit of lashing out on people, taking revenge and just making people feel crappy for fun. Another red flag. But I thought I was special, and that he really cared about me and would never do anything like that to me. I remember leading up to my 18th birthday, with him being 21 now, and he said to me, "When you're 18, you're sending me nudes. You don't get to say no." I brushed it off because I knew I wouldn't. But yeah, notice there's just this element of him wanting to dominate. Fast forward 2 years later. I'm now 18, freshman in college. In October, I broke up with my boyfriend, the same guy as age 16, and Flip took that as an opportunity. He would tell me how he could not bear not seeing me, and that basically, we have to meet or it's all over. Now, I didn't really have romantic feelings for him. My love for him was platonic, but I figured I'll try the romance. I'll try to love him romantically. I couldn't lose him. So I impulsively bought a plane ticket to where he lives in December. My parents had no idea, and to this day, still don't. I was going to go away on a Friday and return for Monday. The college I go to is in the city with an airport, so it was just easy to get an Uber there. This romance that I'm trying to project feels real, and I genuinely felt like I loved him romantically. I was finally going to meet the guy I loved. Now leading up to the flight, about a week or two before, I started getting cold feet. I was questioning the legitimacy of my feelings and started getting on with a guy in a neighboring uni. I started catching feelings for him and kissed him a day before my flight. At that point, I had already decided I didn't want to pursue Flip romantically and figured, hey, we've been friends for 2 years. When I get there, I'll tell him I only want to stay friends. Yeah, he'll be upset, but I'm sure our friendship is worth more than that, and we're able to have a nice, enjoyable time. How naive was I? I decided to go on the trip anyway, thinking that maybe seeing him would reignite that fire. Upon arrival, I realized that I did not love him, and I was no longer attracted to him. Regardless though, he was a close friend of mine for a very long time, and whether I felt a romantic connection or not, I wanted to meet him for the sake of meeting him, just how I would for any internet friend. So it's time for the flight. It's very early. I remember sitting on the plane contemplating walking out. I really just wanted to leave and not return. I should have listened to my gut. I arrive, and I go outside of the terminal. I see him sitting in his car just staring at me, like a very malicious, piercing stare. After a few moments, he gets out the car. He looks different. It's strange because we have FaceTimed and I've seen pictures of him, but he just looks different. Kind of creepier. We hug and sit in the car. It's awkward. I feel awkward. We make small talk and awkward jokes, and in that moment, I wanted to be back in my dorm. We go back to his apartment, and we go up to his room. We smoke some weed, and I lay down on his bed. When I wake up, he's spooning me and trying to fondle me. I take his hands off and tell him to stop. Then I sit up and basically unload about how I don't want him romantically, but only as a friend. He just started crying and begging me to tell him that I loved him. I tell him that I can't do that. And then he stands up, stops crying, goes to the bathroom, and starts setting things on fire. It smells like burning paper in the bedroom now. He comes out normally and just sits on his computer and plays games without speaking to me. Now, the rest of the trip is just a combination of him being kind and normal to him being completely evil. Here's some of the things he did and said through the 3 days. He made jokes at me dying. He would pretend to hit me, like lunge at me, and get close enough to watch as I flinched. Told me he almost sent a snap of me to my mum with the geotag of his town so that I would get in trouble. Told me he almost made me sleep in the car one night. Told me that one night while I was sleeping, he walked over to me and started farting on me. This one's just nasty. He kept telling me to shut up when I would speak or ask him questions, and did that multiple times in front of his roommates. He was trying to feel me up in bed, and I kept pushing his hands away, and he would keep trying and would say things like, "I know you want it, you're just holding back." He'd call me an idiot when I would ask him questions, served me spaghetti, and he purposely used the moldy sauce hoping I would get sick. Told me he was going to make me miss my flight home, and said he was planning to drive in the opposite direction of the airport and dropping me off in the middle of nowhere. So basically I kept my cool, and when he would tell me these things I would nod and agree and laugh with him. But I was scared out of my wits. I wanted nothing more than to leave, so I kind of keep it cool and spend my time trying not to upset him. Monday rolls around, and my flight isn't until 8 p.m. At 11 a.m. he goes downstairs to leave, and in that time I pack my bag and leave without him knowing. My plan of action is to run to the nearest shopping plaza and Uber to the airport from there. I wasn't about to Uber from his house. I'm almost at the end of the street, feeling free, when I feel 2 arms come up from behind and wrap around me. He's hugging me, mumbles something into my ear, and then he turns around and dead sprints back down the street to his apartment. I ran to the shopping plaza, called an Uber, and got it. I felt so much relief in that moment. I felt like I was free. I waited at the airport with nothing to do for 8 hours, but it was better than being there. I looked back and I feel like an idiot. Like I should have gone to a hotel and I should have probably left. But I'm a broke college kid and I was already scared being there without my parents' knowledge. After I left, I blocked him on every social media outlet I have, including LinkedIn. He still tried to contact me regularly for the past 4 months, but luckily, I've never told him my address or anything, and I'd rather never meet him again.